This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast, and tonight, man, we've had a nice string of guests. I've just finally been reaching out to people I've been meaning to invite on the show for a long time. You know, life gets too busy, but that's not really an excuse to not bring friends on the show. And this is a guy that, you know, I met him in Canton. I was on his show, the South Harmon Vibes channel, which you need to go check out right now. Go subscribe, like all of his videos because he's doing some great work over there. Him and T Rock, and I see Maddie Kiwoom over there as well, amongst other people. So tonight we have Fizz or Fizzledollas from South Harmon with us to discuss his strategies for the offseason. And what I like about Fizz, and we were just talking about this before the show, is Fizz doesn't do it the way, like, there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you what to do. Fizz is going to do that, but in his own unique way. Am I saying that right, Fizz?
First of all, man, I appreciate it, my brother. I am here. I appreciate you. But yes, sir, this is the one thing I like about this game. Like I told you before we started, if I'm going to pay, if I'm going to play, I'm going to do it my way. You feel me? So when I get on here, man, I listen to the people. I get the rankings. I do all of that. But if you tell me to take Justin Jefferson over CD Lamb, I might take CD Lamb because that's my guy. You feel me? So it worked out for me a couple years ago. And it seems to, always at the end of the day, make me happy looking at my team. Because the problem, and I say this all the time, we end up with orphan teams with people listening to other people and they draft players that they don't necessarily follow or keep up with. Now they lose and say, man, I ain't even like this team anyway. Then they leave the league. You know what I'm saying? So when you got a team of players that you follow, you love, you watch, you're going to keep that team most times because you enjoy it. So enjoy what you're doing because you invest in a lot of time and most times money into it, man. So enjoy what you're doing or don't do it at all. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good rule for, really for us to kind of base this whole conversation around, because we were going to talk about strategies to dominate your off season. But I think rule number one of dynasty of fantasy football, and this might sound stupid, and this might, to some people, I don't think it's stupid, but some people might scoff at it or whatever. But you have to have fun. Like, the whole point of this is to have a good time. Really, fantasy football is a great excuse to stay in touch with friends that maybe you would otherwise lose touch with. You get together every year, you draft, you probably drink too much, you have a good time, you take your guys. And I think that I learned this lesson every year in rookie draft season is like, at the start of the process, like, perfect example would be in 2022, and Mike from South Harmon, Mike Crystal, not Crystal. I've said that joke way too many times at this point. I messed up his name on the show. It's Crystal, not Crystal. But anyway, Sky Moore in 2022 just took off like a rocket from Western Michigan, and it was pretty much consensus to take him above George Pickens, and they were taken around the same point in the NFL draft. And one of those players, George Pickens, it took him a while, but he was clearly the more talented player, you know. So, and my priors all along were, oh, George Pickens is better than Sky Moore, but I let somebody else talk me
At the
into
community.
Sky Moore
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
he gets the good landing spot and the buzz was happening all season. I think he had a good Senior Bowl too. Like, throughout the process, he just rose up the rankings. So I think that's a good example, just to kick it right off the bat, is like, man, if I would have stuck with how I personally felt, my evaluation, and not took the advice of just, I let it overwhelm me, really, because everybody was like, oh, Sky Moore, Sky Moore, Sky Moore. I was like, well, I guess, gosh, maybe I'm just crazy and George Pickens is not as good. And here we are. And one of those guys is a really nice asset for Dynasty, and the other guy is like the fifth string wide receiver on the 49ers and played because they had like a million injuries this year. So I think that's great advice.
Well, and two things that come to mind to expand on that too are, just recognize that you're gonna miss. I think a lot of times those over complications of these draft choices and trades stem from being afraid to make a mistake. And when you're afraid to make a mistake, you start you start collecting all the content, all the opinions across the internet, and opinions are a lot like something down there that everyone has and they all stink.
You can
That's
say it if
the
you want. It's okay. Even though we're monetized, I mean, we can.
well, every time I curse, Seth goes, we're monetized now, so now we're gonna get demonetized. And so then I don't curse, and he says, you can go ahead and say it.
No pressure here, brother.
Exactly
You do what
right.
you do. I can do what you do, big man.
Anyway, you're gonna miss. You're gonna miss. You're gonna take a Sky Moore. You're gonna take a N'Keal Harry. These things are gonna happen. And so at the end of the day, into my point number 2, Seth said have fun. It's a game. I said it backstage. Like, this is fake football. And yes, you're putting money up. Yes, you have a dynasty team that you're playing for year after year after year. But if you let that build pressure, it starts becoming not fun. And then when you listen to other people and you go away from your priors, your gut decisions based on your process, you feel even worse when you're wrong. You don't learn the right lessons, in my opinion, when you stray away from your own process. So recognize that this is supposed to be fun. And so if you want to take player X over player Y, and everyone's rankings have player Y over just take your guy. And I learned that lesson, Seth, in our sorry, not the Dynasty Roundtable League, the All Elite Dynasty League that you joined over the summer, where I was pounding the table for Emeka Egbuka all off season. And push came to shove, and I let people convince me that I should be higher on Matthew Golden because of draft capital and landing spot and all these different things. And I feel I would have rather have missed on Egbuka than done what I had did and taken Golden. And I feel like an absolute fool for not listening to myself. So just remember that it's fun. Stick with your gut, build your process. And the more L's you take within your own process, the quicker you're going to sharpen that and become a better player.
Yeah, and within that too, I mean, I think we've learned by now, hopefully, because the narrative about Egbuka that year was, oh, Mike Evans is there and Chris Godwin and Wincy and Jalen McMillan had a pretty decent season. And so where are the targets going to come from? Well, if the guy's talented enough, he'll find a way. Just like, it kind of looks like Luther Burden and Colston Loveland. Like, you look at that Bears offense, like, those guys did just fine. Like, Luther Burden had just 30 yards fewer than DJ Moore, and who knows, DJ Moore could be traded. He probably should be traded. Like, not because he's a bad player, because the Bears just have needs on defense that they could fill if they trade him. So if that happens, you're happy you took Colston Loveland and Luther Burden, even though they were in a quote unquote crowded situation, right? So making those bets on talent and trusting your own evaluation and sticking with it, because there's going to be a lot of noise in the coming months with these rookies. Like, I can already tell this is going to be one of those years where everybody's going to have their guy, right? And so if you have your guy, go get your guy. If it's between player X and player Y and it's really close, just go get your guy, man. It's dynasty, like we said. This is supposed to be fun, and yeah, I completely echo everything you guys are saying. Fizz, what's another lesson, or do you want to expand upon that, or where do you want to take this conversation?
Yeah, no, I was going to just expand on a little bit and just say, like, even like me, right? I've learned, especially with my content, I like to carry what I do in life into my content because I kind of want you to understand who I am. And in life, I'm just a very confident person. Like, I always think I'm gonna win, even when I know I probably shouldn't. I always think I'm gonna win. So whenever I draft a player, I'm banking on him to be good. Like, if I'm playing against a guy that has the tool, maybe, different subscribes or different tools, I'm a draft how I draft, and I'm a bet whatever I'm doing against your tool because I just think I'm going to win. So I think me coming in to the draft confidently, I'm not saying I'm reaching for a player that shouldn't be drafted at the spot. Like, I'm not crazy, but um just do like mock drafts, right? You go through the reps. It's like practice. You go through your mock drafts in the off season. Sometimes players change. I know I was real high on a guy like Drake London over BTJ, Nico Collins. Even Puka Nakua was going in the mid seconds last year, and I was screaming he was the receiver one. Check my stats. Check the tape, baby. I was saying Puka's receiver one. Somebody else, my guy Adam, shout out to Adam. He told me it's Malik Neighbors, and unfortunately Neighbors got hurt. But hey, man, I was screaming from the Rapids. Puka is receiver one, man. I just really believe that. And because one, I believe Puka, the guy. Like I've watched him enough to realize that this guy wants it. He's a dog, you know? So another thing with the players too, right? When you watch the game, me, I'm just an inspirational person. If I watch you play and I watch you play like that dog, I want to draft you. I don't care if you're that good or not. I just want you on my team. I feel like you're gonna give my team some good energy just through the internet. You know what I'm saying? So just getting the guys like that, man, that I root for in real life, that's just always my process because it makes Sunday and Monday and Thursday and every other day the NFL has a subscription. It make those days much better when I look at my team and I say, man, I'm glad I got my guy. So yeah, I just like playing the way I want to play, but I like rooting for my team and rooting for my fantasy team. Makes it all come together, man.
Yeah, and there's a few we were kind of talking about one player that was your guy, and I think we can get into specific players because this was also a player. Matt Babich and I made a bet once upon a time, and I pretty much lost this bet because he was on the Trey McBride horse, and we
Got a bad horse though.
Trey McBride tight end 1 consensus in Dynasty, but Kyle Pitts was my guy and that I thought could be the next Travis Kelce. That was the conversation, or at least that's what I remember. It was like the next tight end 1 or tight end 2 spot in Dynasty. But one of your guys was Kyle Pitts, and I also have a lot of Kyle Pitts. I stuck with it probably because I'm either stubborn or stupid or maybe a combination of the two. But Kyle Pitts was one of my guys, and now Kyle Pitts entering free agency looks like he's set up to land somewhere pretty neat. Like if you look at just who has money in free agency, it's a bunch of tight end needy teams like the Rams, the Bengals. He could go back to the Falcons. The Seahawks have a lot of cap space, and maybe they want to upgrade from AJ Barner. You know, they could use some more pass catchers. So, you know, Kyle Pitts, man, talk to me about him a little bit.
Well, again, doing content, you really understand who you are and kind of identify yourself because it always feels good when a guy like Kyle Pitts, he does something and I get people in discourse like, oh, I know Fizz happy today, his boy. Like, yes, that's my boy. So I'm glad you know that because that is my boy. I've been trying to stamp it. Of course, people are going to troll you when you have the bad days, man. But again, I like rooting for guys, man. I'm an underdog guy. I have my Shador Sanders shirt on right now, man. I'm an underdog guy. You feel me? Hey, listen, hey, man, when you check out the intro to the show, you'll know exactly, man, where I've been at with Shador, man. This goes back to college. But Justin Fields, man. I've been rooting for my guy. He's let me down. You know, like I have these guys that maybe are the underdog story or the comeback story, whatever it is. I kind of grow attached to them personally. And I just be like, you know what? I want him to win. And a guy like Kyle Pitts, who everybody wanted, and they just threw away in like a year and a half. I'm just thinking like all those skills didn't go away. Just the opportunity just changed. I don't know what happened in Atlanta, but you can't see a guy that we all wanted. I mean, he went pick 4 in the draft, in the real NFL draft, and we just threw him away at the tight end position. I mean, getting 12 points a game at tight end, you could be a tight end 1. Like, so to throw him away in fantasy, that's crazy to me. If with a guy that's like 20, I think he's 25 years old or something like that. Like he's about to approach his contract. 24, 25 years old, athletic freak, fast, can catch the ball, and we're just going to throw him away? Like, I just don't understand it, man. So just seeing him come up this year, I know contract years are always a good year for players, but just seeing him come through with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins, he didn't do it with just one. Like, he made it work no matter who was at the quarterback position. That was just a good thing, man. So it felt good, especially when I beat guys like Mike in the playoffs with Kyle Pitts, baby, because the playoffs, we all know Kyle Pitts showed up and showed out. And hey, I even made a couple Kyle Pitts trades on the offseason for the discounted price. And now I'm playing with house money. So that's another offseason thing that we'll get to too. Just buying your favorite players that people don't like and you like them because when they have good seasons, hey, you playing with house money after that.
Yeah, and on that, you can make a lot of wins by simply looking where the entire, industry consensus is moving and asking yourself, you don't have to necessarily disagree, but ask yourself, how could they be wrong? Like, how can the masses be wrong? And I feel like Shador Sanders was a really good example of that this offseason. Seth, you remember, and we have video evidence of this on the program, going into the process before, the draft and everything, Shador Sanders was my quarterback 1. And we had conversations about me ranking Shedeur too high. And of course, I changed my process, understanding that he was unlikely to be, the first overall pick, potentially not a first round pick. You kind of, like Fizz said, don't reach on a guy that is a second round player. You're not going to take a Shedeur at the 105 in your rookie draft knowing that he's going to be, second, third, fourth round guy, whatever he ended up being. But I was so on Shedeur Sanders, and everyone kept going the opposite way and with all this attitude stuff. And I kept saying, I'm not sure I see this. So is there an opportunity for me to kind of be on that opposite end and just take a bet on a guy that most people think isn't going to be anything in the NFL? You take a premium position like quarterback on a cheap draft capital with Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't have to be an all-star. He doesn't have to be a world beater. He can be a top 20 quarterback in fantasy. He can be a top 25 quarterback in fantasy, and you're going to win off that value. And, say what you want about the guy. People are going to have different opinions. But man, I turned into a massive fan over the draft process just because I just thought, we can have that conversation if we want to. But I saw a lot of similar traits in Jackson Dart that people loved, and people were turning into positive traits, and they were using the same type of stuff to say negative things about Shedeur Sanders, and that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And there's a lot of that out there. You look at another example that I had was Quentin Johnston going into this season, had some flashes, really cheap guy. Everyone was sure that he was a bust. What if he isn't? What if that tail end of his rookie season was something that we can buy off of? And so, one thing that you can ask yourself, and as Fizz said, get discounts on players that you like, is take a look at, who is the one man's trash kind of player right now, and start looking at who do I think is going to be that guy that, goes out from the frying pan into the fire and being a value in this league. And then just a quick talk about Kyle Pitts. I think he should go back to Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski out in Atlanta. You look at historically how he has used his tight ends in his offensive scheme, who are, generally more athletic guys. I think the Harold Fannin usage is really promising for what we could see with him, particularly because Fannin isn't necessarily a pure blocker similar to Kyle Pitts. Njoku's a little bit of a different archetype, but we saw, and Kevin Stefanski has always had the motive of getting his best players the ball. And I think for Drake London, for Bijan Robinson, for Kyle Pitts, if he returns, particularly with the chemistry that he saw with Kirk Cousins, if Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback for Atlanta next year, which it's not going to be Michael Penix to start the year. So, he's a guy that if there's still a discount, even if his price has risen since beginning, middle, end of last year, he's a guy who I'm willing to pay, a quote unquote premium on, because I think he could pick up right back where he left off next year.
Yeah. And to further your Shedeur Sanders point here, and I think this is a good example because I was thinking about this the other day, because the Todd Monken hiring in Cleveland kind of came out of nowhere, at least for me. I just thought he would just follow John Harbaugh to the Giants. Todd Monken is an old school, been around a while, bulldog kind of a head coach, right? The Cleveland Browns do not have the first overall pick. They will probably have, I guess Deshaun Watson is there, but I don't know how good he is anymore. What I'm saying is Shedeur Sanders is likely going to have he might be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in 2026. And right now on Keep Trade Cut, the narrative is still saying, oh, Shedeur Sanders is not good because he's 141st overall, quarterback 28. And this is a guy who's going to get a shot at being a starting quarterback. To me, even though I'm not the biggest Shedeur fan, I'm looking at that and going, that's worth investing in, because that's a low risk, potential high reward type of player that, again, the narrative is saying, oh, he's not that good, 5th round pick. A lot of teams in the draft passed on him, yada, 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 yada. Same kind of thing happened with Tyler Shuck, except on the opposite end of the spectrum, in the sense that he did get drafted relatively high. Not a lot of people thought Tyler Shuck would get drafted that high. I certainly wasn't a fan of the process, or of the prospect, because in college he did not play well. At least he didn't put up the stats that told you that he played well throughout a consistent season. And look at Tyler Shuck. I mean, it looks like Tyler Shuck's going to be the starting quarterback in New Orleans, and he's a guy who, depending on your rookie draft, I mean, I was getting him at the end of the second round, and basically on my rookie draft, sometimes early third round, when other teams were taking Dylan Gabriel or whoever. I mean, Shador was getting taken ahead of him. I mean,
Jalen Milrose, don't forget about them. Jalen
yeah.
Milrose.
So that was one guy where I went, wait a second here. The draft capital's too good. The potential opportunity's too good, even though I don't necessarily like the player. I mean, we're at a point in the draft where there's not too many players that I like anymore. So I might as well take a chance on this guy, fade the narrative, because the narrative, I'm getting a huge discount here. And for that reason, I mean, I think Tyler Shuck, like if you look at Tyler Shuck, it's not like he's rated super high. I mean, he's 84th overall, quarterback 22. I mean, these are guys you can still get discounted pretty heavily. And I think Shador, like, I mean, if you went and asked like 100 guys in a dynasty league, do you think Shador's cooked? How many of them say yes? Like 60 or 70? Like, I don't know.
Most of them are people that just don't like him anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. So why not? Why not? I mean, he's got a shot. He's a talented guy. And this old school coach who you would think, I don't want anything to do with, a prima donna like Shador Sanders. I'm not saying that. You would think an old school coach might have that mentality. No, like he could have gone to New York with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatabo and Malik Neighbors, and he's like, no, I'm going to take this Cleveland job that nobody wants. Why would you do that? Maybe he believes in Shador Sanders, because I can't. I mean, and maybe we could have the same conversation about Deshaun Watson. I don't see him resurrecting his career, but I could be wrong. But I think if you take that job, you either have another plan for a quarterback, or you're like, I could work with Shador. Like, why not?
Well, I add on to that a little bit, Seth, and I just say, even with the Shador thing, right? I was the biggest, disconnect with why, like, what the shuck. That was my favorite line, especially during the draft. What the shuck is going on around here?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we know the game, but we allow our brains to tell us otherwise. And the one thing I learned about Shuck, as much as we didn't value him as a great quarterback or anything like that, you got to look at the situation. And I always knock Kellen Moore for how he coached Dak. I always said that he made Dak throw the ball way too much. We should have ran the ball more. That's why Zeke looked the way he looked. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so I've watched him coach. The one thing I've learned, though, by watching Shuck, I think the reason why they didn't, and I know this is not an NFL draft show, but I kind of want to correlate it with, I think when he took Shuck, he didn't take Shador because he realized maybe the volume was just too much for him. And I think Kellen Moore is a laid back kind of guy. I think he took a guy that he relates to more in the Tyler Shuck, kind of got a little bit of himself in him. And he made him go out there and throw the ball the way he would have a Dak Prescott or another quarterback. And I think if Shador was in that offense, he might have been doing the same thing. I'm not saying Shuck is like interchangeable, but I think when you look at Kellen Moore and how he runs his offense, it's always high power, high scoring. Ask the Eagles, they could tell you, they miss him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you look at how he plays his offense, how he calls it, I'm not saying that we should have thought that it would have happened, but now that I'm peeling the layers back, I'm not surprised at what Shuck is doing or how he ended the season going forward. And I think to go to what Shador had, like Matt already said, man, people already had feelings about Shador. Like I say, I believe in confidence. I'm just a real confident person. I think I always said this, even when Shador was drafted, even if he's not starting, at some point he's going to make those veterans believe him that I'm just a more confident guy. I can get you to where you need to be. And I'm not saying he had the best season he had, but when you got a guy like Myles Garrett on the sideline looking and he's praising Shador and giving him fives and dapping him up like, hey, good job. I think confidence leads men in locker rooms. And I think we forget that because a lot of times people just look at the stats and the numbers, but man, confidence leads men, especially in locker rooms. So I think Shador always had that. He just had to get on the field and show it. But knowing that you can't break his confidence, man, that's gonna make the worst player on the team believe that he can run through a wall. So I always believed in him. It's just the circumstances of the Cleveland Browns. It is what it is. But confidence leads men, and I'm always thinking that Shador will figure it out at some point. But Todd Monken, definitely, I don't know if y'all caught the clip, but he came to Cleveland and said, "Hey, I tried to draft you in Baltimore." So he already kind of stamped it like, "Hey, I want you." You know what I'm saying? So we'll see what happens with Deshaun and the Shador thing. But it sounds like Todd is going there with Shador in mind of hey, you my guy. So we gonna see. But that price value has definitely gone up. And I just ended with this, Matt, because I heard you say it about the draft. And like I always say, I don't reach for my guys. Sometimes I do. But when you paying a late second, early third for a Shador in the draft, how much of a reach is it? You know what I'm saying? Like you can hate Shador all you want, but if you paying 301 for him, come on, bro. That's not, it's not like, oh my goodness, why did you take him here? So again, we let personal feelings get in the way of our drafts. And I know with guys like Shador going so late, it was a steal in any draft that you got him, man, because he definitely wasn't going high enough that you gambled your whole rookie draft away taking him.
We were talking about that, Seth and Michael and us on the last episode. When you're at the end of the second or early third and you have a chance to take a bet on a premium position, it's almost always a good bet to take that guy over, some third, fourth round running back that you have a feeling could break through in an offense, or some small school receiver. When you're looking at a quarterback, especially in Superflex, man, I've learned this lesson too often now, especially last year with Shuck. And I told Seth, I don't know how many times I don't want Tyler Shuck on my team. And you mentioned sometimes we know the game. You know what? Sometimes we let our personal opinions get a little too in the way. So you got to play that balance too, where I needed to be able to put my pride aside and say, hey, regardless of what I think about Tyler Shuck, or if it was Shedeur Sanders in your case, regardless of what I think about this player, the value for a premium position is well worth my draft capital. And if I continue to make these types of positive value bets across my dynasty roster, I'm going to profit more often than I, collapse my dynasty roster. Because if you tried to load your roster with the Caleb Johnsons of the world and you try and do that every single year, you're going to end up with so many Caleb Johnson, Jalen Reagor type players, and you're going to completely miss out on the Shedeur Sanders, the Tyler Shucks of the world.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's well said. Like this narrative, like the narrative fading it, using the momentum of the media against it, I think is really good advice. I wanted to, because we talked about Kyle Pitts and situation. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about some of these free agent running backs, and I think that this is a really good way to stay ahead of the curve too. And I don't know if Fizz or Matt, if you have any strong opinions about these guys, but I was thinking about players like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne. Now, Travis Etienne was in an ideal situation, and who knows what's going to happen with him. On the other hand, Kenneth Walker was like, he was giving up red zone touches to Zach Charbonnet for whatever reason. I think Kenneth Walker's a better player, but I'm not running the Seattle Seahawks and they're in the Super Bowl, so clearly they're doing something right. Breece Hall, I mean, it doesn't get much worse for a running back, but if you look at some of the efficiency numbers, some of the data points on fantasy points data, he's very much up there in explosive run rate. So I'm looking at Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall this offseason going, man, those two guys could land in some really good spots that we like a lot for fantasy. I mean, I'm looking at the Washington Commanders. So I think this is another tip too, and we kind of touched on it with Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts, hopefully he does stay with the Falcons, because I think that would be a great landing spot. But even if he doesn't, there's a lot of outs there. And I think for players like Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, they're good investments to make because A, they're not super expensive. I mean, I think Breece Hall's in the top 50. Kenneth Walker's in the 80s somewhere last time I checked on Keep Trade Cut. they're not too expensive. And man, if they land in the right situation this offseason, they can make a real rise up the rankings. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but staying one step ahead on free agents and seeing kind of where they might go. Now we could be wrong, obviously, but going through that process and just kind of pulling up a list and going through the teams that have like the most cap space, and Seattle does have a lot of cap space, so they could decide to bring Kenneth Walker back, and that would obviously not be great, but going through that process every year is something that I actually like to do, and to try to predict where these teams and what they're going to do. And some teams surprise us, like the Cowboys always seemingly find a way to like do something that I didn't expect that they might do, Jerry being Jerry and whatnot. But it's a fun process to go through, and I think it really can give you an edge in Dynasty.
Well, I just say I think sometimes again, I think we don't use our like we know what to expect, but we don't use it, right? And with the running back position, I'm gonna go even lower, Seth. I know you brought up Brees and Kenneth Walker. I'm looking at guys like Tyler Algier and Rico Dowdle, right? Because I think
Great
we
point.
know what to expect from the Ken Walkers, and maybe we get our hearts broken. That's where that line goes. Where Kenneth Walker, let's just say he goes to the perfect opportunity, we're gonna draft him higher than maybe what we would have drafted him. But when you peel back and say, I missed out on that price, but I got me a Tyler Algier, who the Cowboys didn't re-sign Javonte Williams. Now Tyler Algier is there with Jaden Blue, and I think Algier could outproduce a lot of those guys that we have in front of him just because of the opportunity, as we saw with Javonte Williams. So I think when we look at the running back position and free agency, a lot of times it's just landing spot, man. It's not really the player in itself, because who in the world thought Rico Dowdle was going to take Chuba Hubbard's job and pretty much win championships and win leagues with how he plays? So I think it's just opportunity, man, when it comes to running back, unless you are those Brees Halls and Kenneth Walkers. But when it gets past those top three of, top two or three guys, those under guys, man, like I said, the Rico Dowdles and the Algiers and even J.K. Dobbins, right? He's if he's healthy, I know he's a 8-9 game guy, but if he goes to a perfect situation, those are the guys I like looking into, because me personally, when I draft, I'm a receiver heavy guy. Now, I don't mean to be cliche, but a lot of people, we get the quarterbacks, we get the receivers, then we attack the running back. I always look for those dirty running backs, because I can tell you this year, Travis Etienne, nobody wanted him. Javonte Williams, nobody wanted him. You can go down the list of those guys, man, that had great seasons that nobody wanted. And I think it's this opportunity, when it comes to those running backs, especially the under guys, man, that won't get as much money, but maybe get better opportunities.
So my thoughts on both of those points combined is to make a broad piece of advice is don't be stagnant. Like you have a buy window on any of these guys: Kenneth Walker, Brees Hall, Tyler Algier, hell, even Travis Etienne. Like he could end up in a new spot. There's some uncertainty there. If you continue to wait until you gain more clarity, you miss out on your buy window, and you are afraid, and you end up missing out on that value. So you got to look at this a little bit more like gambling, not to get too degenerate on you guys, but when you think of it as a bet, things start to make more sense, and you got to, it kind of plays into, don't be afraid to miss, where follow your process. And Seth and I talk about this in different instances, where we talk about deep stashes. And a lot of times Seth will have a running back in one team's backfield, and I'll have another running back in that same backfield. We have two completely different players that we want to go after, but our process is the same. We want to attack this ambiguous backfield because we can see one of these two running backs that nobody wants rise up the ranks and have a role on this team. And the same thing goes with free agency, where if you're buying after free agency, you've completely missed the entire point of the window. And you got to let go of that fear of, oh, well, maybe Kenneth Walker signed some. Go with your process. And if a Tyler Algier still, re-signs in Atlanta, then, so be it. You bought it probably equal value, and he still has a role in that Atlanta offense. If you buy Kenneth Walker and he stays in Seattle, Zach Charbonnet tore his ACL very late into the season and is likely not going to be himself from whatever point he returns through the end of next season. So take into account what that risk reward ratio is, because a lot of times when you start looking at it through that lens of, oh, it's actually not that big of a deal if I take Kenneth Walker and, the worst case scenario happens. And, if you get stagnant, then you miss out on that best case scenario of a guy like Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall or Tyler Algier going to a Washington or a Dallas where they could absolutely cannibalize touches in a high volume scoring offense. So, just to coagulate both of those points is, regardless of whether you're looking at that top of the tier or where you're looking at, more of the bottom of the barrel, follow your process and figure out, who do I want to buy, and pull the trigger. Do not wait.
Yeah, I love that. And it got me thinking too. And Fizz, it kind of sounds like we like to build our dynasty teams very similarly, because I like to attack those premier positions, and I view those as quarterback, wide receiver, and then the running back. If I go out and get a running back, it's the cherry on top of what is hopefully a contending super team, right? And if and I think and I try to go out and get the veteran running backs that have, a year or two left. In the case of Derrick Henry, like, who knows how long he has left, probably 10 more years. But like, there are situations that come up, and where I go, I kick myself and I go, I cannot believe I did not think of doing that, of going out and getting like a Javonte Williams. Because you know what, Matt, you said something and it got me thinking. You could have probably acquired that entire backfield. Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue. Didn't they have Miles Sanders on the team too? And he got hurt.
Unfortunately, yes, we did. Yes.
Yeah. So you could have just said, okay, I'll go out and get all these guys. I mean, depending on who, had them in your league or whatever, but they were cheap. I mean, and you knew that was going to be an offense that was going to be able to move the ball. And worst case scenario, what you lose a second round pick, rookie pick, if that, to go out and get Javonte Williams or the equivalent value. So yeah, attacking these situations, like, who's the Commanders running back going to be next year? Because I want a piece of that action. Is it going to be JCM? Are they going to go out and get a Breece Hall? Because that's part of the reason why I'm very excited about Breece Hall this offseason, and I think he's a good buy. There's so many good spots he could land. I doubt he lands with the Chiefs. I suppose it's possible, but the Chiefs are in cap hell. It's much more likely that he goes to a place like Washington. And that's a scenario where I think maybe they do go the Javonte Williams cheap route. And if that happens again, yeah, I'm going to be trying to attack pieces of that backfield to see if I can get 2 out of 3, or maybe all 3 of those guys in that scenario in these deeper leagues. Because, we play in that goodbye Canton league. We go 30 rosters deep. I think it's either 33 or 34 spots. So you could definitely have space for all these guys. So yeah, situations matter for these running backs, and you don't necessarily have to overpay to get somebody who can really help your dynasty squad. Case in point, Javonte Williams this year was very, very useful to you.
Yeah, and I'll just say this also, that's where it comes with, get your preference of the player. Because you, like Matt said,
Yep.
it's all a gamble anyway, right? So if I'm a gamble, at least let me be happy with losing the gamble. Like, I don't want to say, man, I know I shouldn't have took this dude. I don't know why I listened to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, go get your guy, because you can live with it if it's your guy. So that's how I always want to play. I can live with my decision at the end of the day. I tell people all the time when they in the chat and they say, hey, who should I take? And I might tell them what to do, but I always say, remember, it's your decision at the end of the day. So, don't get mad at me when it don't work out, but you got to be able to live with it, man, because this is your team. You put this together, and you when you lose, you want to say, all right, I can regroup knowing I tried. But when you win, you can also say, I took that bet, I took that gamble. Now you looking forward to what's next. But just copy and pasting from another, sheet and bringing it to your team, that's probably the worst way to play it, man. So make sure you live with your decisions.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Fizz, do you have a rule? Like, we've talked a lot about fading the narrative,
Mhm.
being active, going after your guy. Is there another lesson that you have that you're always, that's on the front of your mind as we enter the off season, like some piece of advice that you've learned as you've played Dynasty for all these many years that you've been doing it?
Well, my number 2 rule behind the main one of enjoy it is try to learn your league, man. Try to like if you're gonna spend this much time, because I know a lot of it just degenerates, man. We literally follow this game to the T, right? But you got to follow your opponents. You got to learn how to say, hey, this dude right here got a Chiefs logo in his profile. Maybe he might want this player. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to start scoping the landscape when you looking at your league, because this is the time where you're so bored, you don't know what to do. So now you start looking at the ops, man. You got to start putting them in the scope. Play Call of Duty, put them in your scope, and say, I'm gonna pick each one of these guys over until I figure out who has my guy, and I'm gonna give them their guy. But I'm gonna try to win that trade. But you just got to make sure you check out your league, hit the DMs, like just start getting active, because I think we come to a point where in the off season people take a break, and that's fine, that's cool. But if you want to win your off season like this show is about, that's when you got to do the underwork that nobody else is online. Let me get online. I'm inboxing everybody, man. Having small talk. Hey, bro, I mean, what's up, man? I saw you almost won last year. Hey, you got to kind of sell it a little bit, but get to know your league mates, man. That's how you really win these leagues, and you build that rapport. People start looking out for you. I had people last year trade me. Somebody traded me Javonte Williams for a second rounder, and they was like, "Look, bro, I want to see you win, man. Go ahead, man. Get your guy." There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So you got to build them relationships, man, and holler at the people. Don't be a fly on the wall, because you're gonna watch everybody else go eat, man.
And I love that point too, because I experience this a lot in my job. A lot of people at their jobs will experience it. Or even outside of that, you'll get a call, whether it's a pest control company trying to get you service, or someone related to your job. People get sold things all the time. And what's the common factor when you pick up that phone and it's someone trying to sell you something? Hey, how's it going? Like, how's your week going? It's always this interpersonal relationship that tries to get developed. And that's how things have always worked in life. And the same lesson applies to Dynasty, where people want to make trades with people that they're more familiar with. If you come out of the woodwork and have never talked to this person in your league mate, and you send him, an offer that, maybe you're trying to get the best of him a little bit, that can start off, a rocky relationship, and builds distrust. And if no one in your league trusts you or likes you or knows you, no one's going to really want to trade with you. And the more you build those relationships, you think about it, you watch like these Hard Knocks, or the inside the draft videos where they show you what's going on in the war room. There's always a familiarity with the GMs when they're talking to each other. They know these other GMs fairly well. They've spoken to them. For every one call where a trade gets done, they've probably talked to that general manager 10, 15 more times on the phone. And so build those relationships, just like Fizz said. Like, that's such a key ingredient in being able to make moves in your dynasty league, is not just, being active and putting people on the trade block, which is important, but getting to know, your league mates. And there are people in dynasties that I trade more often with, and I have more productive trade conversations with, because it's not just they send me a random trade every few months that isn't very good. It's hard to workshop off of that. There's other dynasty owners that say, hey, I'm looking to upgrade my running back core. I see you got a strength of running backs, and maybe I could help you out with receivers. Like, what are you trying to do with your team this year? There's a little bit of a poker aspect to dynasty, in my opinion, where you do want to keep some of your plans a little bit close to your chest. But there's nothing wrong with discussing different, strategies on how you're trying to move with your team in the offseason to other people. And I think a lot of, dynasty players fall into that fall into that trap where they try and keep everything way too close to their chest. But if I went to Seth and just was open and honest about what I was trying to do with my team, maybe Seth is like, hey, that doesn't really match with what I'm trying to do. Okay, cool. We didn't get much done here, but I got a good idea about what Seth wants to do. He has a good idea about what I want to do. And at some point down the road, our paths will cross again. and we'll talk. I said, hey, you know what? I hit on a couple of running backs that I wasn't expecting to hit on this year. I have some unexpected depth. Let's restart this conversation and see if maybe you would like a Javonte Williams or something like that. And so even if it doesn't pay off right away, playing that long game with the relationships will help you.
Oh, 1,000%. And I'll tell you this too. If you're willing to do that in February, I promise you there are some of your league mates are not willing to do some of those things in February. So if you are, I call it information gathering, because even if you don't make a trade, right? Hey, you saw the Chiefs logo, you heard him say like, I'm going for it this year, or maybe I'm entering a rebuild, whatever the case may be. You know that guy who's entering a rebuild is not going to want your veterans. He's going to want rookie picks. He's going to want players with upside, younger players, etc. So you know what he wants. And if situations change all the time in Dynasty, just because you can't make a trade today doesn't mean you can't make a trade tomorrow or a week from now or whatever the case may be. But you came away from that interaction. You're more familiar with the person on the other side of the DM. Two, you know more of what he's looking to do. So you now have that information that you can use whenever. And again, if somebody in your league's not willing to do that, then you get the edge in this landscape that we're in, where it's getting harder and harder and harder to get those edges in Dynasty, because people are more, they're more well informed than they ever have been. That basic communication goes a long way. And hell, that's why we're in the league in the first place, is so we can kind of connect with our buddies, like give each other some shit. It all is centered around the nucleus of we're trying to have a good time here, and we're all trying to build a winner. And I think also sometimes people forget, oh yeah, I have to send a trade offer that A, makes sense, and B, is fair, right? Or you know what I mean? Or at least helps them out. And
Sure.
some people kind of forget that. One of the things, and this comes back to, I think, Matt, your point is you have to, kind of be a good person, or be somebody who people want to trade with. I'm dancing around it, but you have to know what they need. You have to know what they're after, and you have to be able to meet that need and to present a fair offer, because we've all gotten those dog shit trade offers in the inbox where you're just like, automatic reject, not even gonna talk to this person, not even
Yeah.
gonna respond with, ooh, interesting offer, but not really what I'm looking for right now. Because, and again, when you send one of those offers and it's an automatic reject by anybody that knows Dynasty, it doesn't do you any good. In fact, it has a negative impact on your ability to win that league. So send fair trade offers. Don't be a dick. Don't alienate yourself.
Yeah.
And when you're going through that process, you are information. Even if you don't come away with a trade, you're gaining valuable information.
And I just say it's not colluding, but you don't want to be that guy that people target. Like, man, I can't stand this dude. Who you want from my team to help you win against this dude? You know what I'm saying? And even though it could be a fair trade that happened, but people will literally go against you and help out another team just so you can lose. So don't be that guy that everybody in the league hates, man, and they can't wait to hook the other team up to win a championship, man. I've seen it done plenty of times. So yeah, man, it's just holler at your people, man. That's why you're in the league. I think what we forget though, fellas, is yes, we are playing the game, but we forget to enjoy the engagement and learning each other, right? Like that's why I say enjoy the process, man, because we get so stuck on winning that we forgot the whole 17 weeks of what we were doing. We just stuck on week 17 in championship. And after I lose, man, I can't believe this. Bro, you know how much fun I had this year, even though I lost? You know what I'm saying? So enjoy the process, man. Don't just wait to the championship and you lost and now it's the end of the world, because it's only the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I don't do dynasty content. Maybe someday I'll be big, like BDGE or one of those guys, but I didn't start out doing dynasty content. I'm not in dynasty leagues primarily to make money. I'm in it because I like doing it. It's my hobby. I love it. right? That's why we're sitting around talking like
For
this.
sure.
And we're all in leagues together, and that's like we're all conversing and talking and DMing and getting on podcasts like this talking about our process because we love doing this. And yeah, I think that's an underestimated part of why we do this. It's not necessarily, at least not for me, like there might be some people who have the spreadsheets with algorithms that I don't even know about that can maybe that's out that can just crank in money year after year after year. Now I feel like I've done okay, but the point is not that. The point is connecting with your fellow friends over something that you really enjoy. And I think sometimes we forget about that. So I think that's a point that's well made.
I have potentially a hot take on that. Accountability is a big thing in fantasy football Twitter. A lot of these accounts post their records and their return on investment every year. There's so much variance and luck that does have to go your way. I mean, I had a redraft team that was 2-7 that managed to win the championship and rattle off like 8 out of 9 wins, to end the season because, I had a lot of 49ers on the team and they happened to have this unreal stretch down the season. And my opponents had bad games when they played me. This is we play a game that you want to put yourself in a position to be able to get that lucky strike, but you have to get the luck. You have to stay healthy, especially in Dynasty when a couple of bad strokes of luck on an aging roster and you're stuck in a weird limbo position that may take a couple of years to get out of. If you're raking in money hand over fist every single year, you may not be in competitive enough leagues. That's my opinion because I consider myself a sharp dynasty player. I consider myself, good at what I do here in playing fantasy football. There are a lot of guys across these dynasty leagues that I'm in that are also very talented and have put together very good rosters. And if you're in a league where you're consistently, year after year after year, you're just winning in all of your leagues, you might be a really good player. There's a percentage of those people that are really good players. There's also a percentage of those people that are probably the only hardcore dynasty player in that entire league. And, I'm painting a broad brushstroke here, but just if you see people with content like that, just keep that in mind. Just don't necessarily discredit them and immediately assume that they're in, not competitive enough leagues. But just remember that this is this is a lucky game that we have to play. And for every player that you see on Twitter that has all this, ROI, there's people that are plenty good at dynasty football and know the game of football that aren't coming away with these numbers. So don't, but like Seth said, don't get too caught up in the dollars and cents. And if that's all you're in it for, then man, go bet on, money lines and do research and bet on player props. Cause that's truthfully, that's where your ROI is going to be if you're really in it for getting money out of your investment.
Man, this investment isn't worth the money. Dynasty is not worth the money. I don't care how much you tell me. If you play $100 league, you know how much time you spent on this league is not worth the money at all. So I'll just say I'm in it to win it now. Don't get me wrong. I want to win this thing, but I want to enjoy the process as well. So, and I love beating those guys that really need to win. Those are the ones I love to beat the most. So, enjoy it, man. Enjoy it.
But I like taking it in a league by league basis too, rather than my whole
For sure.
portfolio. Because if you win your league, once every 5 years or something like that, you're probably, depending on the payout structure, you're going to be in the green for that league. So, think of it like that too of, you're right. It's not worth the investment for $100, but just think, you don't have to be winning all your leagues every year to be, in a position where that's worth the money. If you have the enjoyment and you win, 1 or 2 leagues every few years, you're right on par with pretty much everyone else that plays Dynasty.
Facts.
Yeah, I look at it a little bit differently. Like if I'm in like a $50 or $100 league, I view that as, I'm going to invest a lot of time in this, but man, that's like $100 for the whole year, where I'm in this league and in the rookie draft, in doing trades, grinding waivers, it's all stuff that I enjoy doing is the team building process. And so for just $100 or $50 or whatever the buy-in is, I get to be a part of this for the whole year. Cool. Like, sign me up. That's that's entertainment for me, that, even if I lose the league or build a shitty team, which has happened to me before, I still, like, I went after my guys. I did it my way. At the end of the day, even if you fall flat on your face, sometimes it bees that way, is what mama says sometimes. So, like, if are you having fun? Are you enjoying it or not? And if you're not, you probably need to ask yourself why you're doing it in the first place, right?
Exactly.
So,
But you also got to go through the process of getting a team where you rebuilding. You want to lose. You want to figure out, how do I build this thing from scratch? Some teams you get as orphans that aren't good. Some teams you get bad luck, right? You get 4 or 5 players, your key players injured for multiple games. You know what? It's time to call it quits on this year. Let me just regroup next year. So, just again, that's why losing isn't at the end of the world, because it can equal the number one pick, and then your whole team has changed. So, enjoy the process of losing when you're in these leagues too. You just gotta learn how to figure it out, dig yourself out the hole.
yeah. So we are just about out of time. Fizz, is there any final points that you wanted to make here as we're kind of getting towards the end? Anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I just say, like, during the draft process, because that was a thing I wanted to bring up. When again, I'm gonna go back to the get your guy thing, because I had this conversation all off season doing my mock drafts, and I got to get you guys on a mock draft, man. I will tell you, I started this thing called the marathon mock draft, and basically we draft rookies 1 through 3, and then from round 401 and beyond, we draft the vets. So
Okay.
if you pick the first pick, you'll end up with the 412. And if you get the last pick, you'll get the 4-1, which is the Lamar, Josh Allen's. And it's a cool concept, because you, instead of you putting your rookies in the middle of the draft, you build your team first. So you get the Ashton Genty, and you come back with a Shador Sanders and Terrence Ferguson, let's just say. Now you say, all right, I got my one running back. I give you a perfect example of a great draft that never worked out though. We had a couple teams get Ashton Genty at the 101, and on their swing back picks, they got Bijan and Jameer Gibbs. So you would never get that in real life, because your team probably too good to have that. But in the marathon draft, you get the option of getting that number one pick and the 112 and the 201. I mean, the 112 and the 201 in the regular draft. So, you know what I'm saying? So having Genty, Gibbs, and Bijan, that was a hell of a way to start a draft. But most of those teams failed. I will just say that. But yeah, I got to get y'all one of those drafts this summer. But I will just say, my biggest advice would be, though, again, go get your guy. I went through this process where we had conversations about AJ Brown versus Devonta Smith. I'm a Devonta Smith guy to the core. This is my man. I know AJ is the number one. He's the clear guy on the team during the off-season process. I always took Devonta Smith over AJ Brown at the price, because I always just said maybe AJ Brown isn't as that much better than Devonta Smith when it comes to the numbers and staying consistent, which we kind of saw this season. If I can get at that range of Rasheed Rice, where he was going, or T. Higgins, and then still get Devonta Smith, it's worth it than me taking AJ Brown, and then where Devonta Smith is, I'm stuck with, man, I don't know who I want now, because my guy's gone. You know what I'm saying? So if you got a guy that's like 2 or 3 rounds away, the value says get him, but your guy's 3 rounds, it's okay to just wait. So that's the thing. Like, I always bring it up, AJ Brown versus Devonta Smith, because they play on the same team. I'm just a Smitty guy, so I let you take AJ. I get Smitty later on.
Mr. Babbage, any final words of wisdom on this dynasty, how to win the offseason in dynasty episode?
Yeah, I would say we talked a lot about, fading the narrative and not listening too much to, the media, the mass consensus of fantasy. And, I talk every year about how the combine can sometimes do more bad than good in terms of our process, but doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention to it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be following these guys. And I say that mostly because it helps us figure out the diamonds in the rough that we want to chase. So Senior Bowl's going on, Shrine Bowl, into the combine. Pay attention to how these people are talked about in terms of their interviews and their meetings with teams. Don't necessarily stay, completely out of the news loop, because there's a lot of valuable information to be gleaned in terms of predicting, who do I need to watch? Who's the Bashul Tutin of this draft class that could be drafted, high. And RJ Harvey was another guy that came up late towards the draft cycle as he started to steam up draft boards and mock drafts. So do be paying attention. Play that balance though, where you're not letting a Matthew Golden in the first round completely wreck your priors, but it's important to continue to follow that information so that you have a good understanding of not just what your thoughts are about some of these guys and getting to know some of these lesser known players, but understand what teams seem to be thinking about them as well, and go into the draft kind of knowing who these players are, and it'll help you kind of sort through the noise if you at least know who these people are. Because if you try and get to know all these people after the draft, before your rookie draft, you end up going a little bit more towards landing spot and draft capital, which is important, but it's not the whole thing. As we saw with Caleb Johnson, I've been dogging on Caleb Johnson a lot, but he's a guy, if you just opened your eyes for the first time in the rookie draft after the season, you'd say, oh, good draft capital, landed at the Steelers, not a lot of competition there. And you would have put a lot of weight on that. And you would have put a lot of weight on RJ Harvey, who I think is turning into a good pick, but wasn't necessarily the back end of the first round pick that we would have liked so far in the first round, in his first year of football. So play that balance, get to know these players early on and start forming your own opinions so that as this draft process plays out, you have a good idea of what your stance is. And it makes it a lot easier to process all of the news that's going to come out in the coming months.
Two things. One, Fizz, I have to imagine that AJ Brown was a lot higher ranked on Keep Trade Cut and in every dynasty league than Devonta Smith. And right now, or at that time last year, or whenever,
last year definitely he was going at least 4 rounds higher in every mock draft we were doing.
Yeah, and now they are. AJ Brown is at 70. Devonta Smith is at 72, according to Keep Trade Cut. So that is a win for you.
Go get your guy, baby.
I think we saw AJ Brown's last game as an Eagle.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. And then Caleb Johnson. You talk about dynasty changes fast, right? No more Arthur Smith, no more Mike Tomlin, possibly no more Aaron Rodgers. Enter Mike McCarthy. Does Mike McCarthy like Caleb Johnson? Who knows? But I'll tell you this right now. Where's Caleb Johnson on Keep Trade Cut?
I just say Mike McCarthy don't even run the ball, so that's a whole nother conversation.
But at a player 180 RB 45, I think I'd be paying to find out. I don't know. It's pretty cheap.
Go get it.
Anyway, Fizz, thank you so much for joining us. Let the people know where they can find you everywhere.
Oh yeah, well, but @name is right there, man. @Fizzledollas. Just to let y'all know, man, I'm working on some things this year, man. I'm gonna get back in the studio. I'm gonna drop me a mixtape because people been screaming and hollering about you need to get back. The music game is trash, so I'm here to recycle, baby. Pick it up, hook you up, man, and check me out over South Harmon Vibes, man. That's where most of my content is, if not all of it. And hey, every Monday or Tuesday morning we got the cook up. Friday night is Fizzle Fridays, and anything in between, man. We figure out where to sprinkle in a little bit of game, man. But just come over, man. Holler at me, DM me, inbox me, whatever it is, man. I always get back to the people, man. So I appreciate y'all. Appreciate the guys having me here tonight, man. And hey, the round table got a little rounder tonight, baby.
Some much needed class and swag from Fizz. Because I don't have much of that.
Seth, you a cool guy, man. I just say this, man. I had Seth on one night and he's like, man, I don't know if I was in a club or not, but this is one of the best nights I ever had on content. So ever since then, I was like, all right, Seth, man, you know what's up, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Fizz. And we have to end the show. Mr. Babish, do you have any words of wisdom for the people? You gave the Dynasty words of wisdom. You got any other good wisdom from Uncle Matt over there in the corner?
Yeah, man, I was trying to think about it going into. You've gotten me into the space now where I know you're going to ask me that question. It's like 30 minutes or an hour before the show. I'm like, what am I going to tell the people at the end of the show? And I don't really have anything, but we're in kind of the dog days of sports a little bit where, there's going to be no more football here soon. Basketball, is kind of coming to a lull there near the All-Star break. NHL is nearing their break. got the Winter Olympics on. So, I guess my words of wisdom is if you're, a football only fan or you watch some other sports that are in a lull right now, just be adventurous, try something new, check out the Winter Olympics. There's a ton of different sports going on. Be a little patriotic, and maybe you'll find something new that you're interested in. So that's all I got today.
I forgot about the Super Bowl. How could I forget about the Super Bowl? Fizz, do you got a pick for the Super Bowl? Who you like in the Super Bowl?
I would just say this. I actually picked the Patriots to make the playoffs. And it was a 7th seed, but I picked them to make the playoffs. I'll just say the Patriots way does not fail. I'm going to Patriots, man. Don't ask me why. It's just the Patriots way, baby. That's all I'm going to say. I can't give you a statistical reason. I'm going to just say the Patriots way, man.
Yeah, you're talking to a Patriots fan. Babbage, are you going with the Patriots?
I see you got a Kendrick, you got a Bourne jersey in there. You are definitely a fan. So
yeah, I've been, I was in a spot where I was switching it out most of the season, and then the playoffs started. So I was like, I'm not gonna mess with it. Yeah. We're gonna keep Kendrick Bourne up there. He's one of my favorite, unsung. You talk about liking an underdog. I'm the same way. So like when guys like Kendrick Bourne, pop off, it's just somebody he's not a star, but just love watching the guy play. And the confidence that he has when he's on the field. But yeah, I got a Cam Newton jersey in there. That was like one of the best days of my life when we signed Cam Newton. Those were tough times in terms of record, but one of my favorite quarterbacks that I've ever watched play the game. Obviously, from a fan perspective, I'm going with the Patriots. But to be honest, from a realistic perspective, I say this without trying to reverse jinx or do anything like that. I said before the AFC Championship game even started that I don't think that we have the firepower right now to beat the Seahawks or the Rams. I would rather go up against a Darnold that I think we can get to and rattle. I would have rather played Seattle and taken the challenge of their defense than try and overcome Hall of Fame Matthew Stafford and defend Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. That just sounded like not fun to me. But I do, again, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it out loud. You know where I'm going with that. I'm just going to say Patriots win. Everyone knows where I was going with that from a realistic perspective, but I'm not even going to say it out loud. Patriots win.
And we can't have a consensus, and I have to be on the side of the ginger, Sam Darnold. So I'd say Seattle is going to win. I just think that they're just a little bit better positionally all the way around. So definitely, I think I don't think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I think Mike Vrabel's going to try to grind it out, and I think that's probably what he should do because I think he's a little bit outmanned offensively. But hey, Trevion Henderson, maybe this is where he steps up and breaks off a big run.
I don't know if the line is still where it was, but I saw someone tweet out a pic of Trevion Henderson most rushing yards in the game was at 50-1. And
oh my God.
I thought that was an incredible value, regardless of, what's happened in these past few games with him taking a backseat to Ramondre, just with that big playability. So if I were to give you a pick, I think you can waste $5 on a lot worse things than trying to come away with, $250 for that. So that was something interesting that I saw from the prop perspective.
Well, short story. I know we're leaving. My first and only college football game was seeing Stephon Diggs here in Maryland. And when he got drafted, I was like, I told my father, I took him to his first and only game. I said, Pops, that's that dude we saw. He was the best player on the field that day of the game. I still got a ticket in my closet. And as we can see now, he's in the Super Bowl, man. So shout out Stephon Diggs, hometown boy, man, over here in Maryland. So that's my dog right there.
Yeah, and I'm going to drag this out a little bit further because to further your point, I'm a big Iowa Hawkeyes fan, and every year the Hawkeyes they do what all these, Power 4, Power 5 schools do. They schedule a cupcake at the beginning of the year, and one of those years that was Wyoming, and it just so happened that Josh Allen was the quarterback for Wyoming that year. And I tell you this, Iowa's usually got some pretty good defensive linemen, good linebackers. Josh Allen was shrugging those guys off like they weren't anything. He just didn't have anybody to throw the ball to at Wyoming, right? And so I watched Josh Allen play, and I go, I don't know, like the accuracy wasn't there at that point, but I just went, I have never seen that before. like what he's doing reminded me of like Ben Roethlisberger, how he just shrugged guys off, you know? It's like, and then throw it 50, 60 yards down the field off of his back foot out of bounds. And it
Yeah, I'm about
doesn't
to
show
say
up
that
in the
nobody.
stat. It doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but you're going, holy shit.
Hell of a
Like,
throw, yeah.
somebody's got to take this guy. And sure enough, like the Bills took him like in the top 10 in that draft. And I was like, I think that's going to work out. So hopefully somebody gets a hold of this wild Bronco and turns him into a good quarterback, because holy shit, he's got talent up the wazoo. But anyway, so like to further your Stephon Diggs point, it's like when you're at the game and you're watching it and you go, holy shit, like
Yeah,
that guy's good.
he was on a kick return. He had a kick return back. I said, man, this dude, whoever he is, when he get drafted, I'm watching him. In 6th round to the Vikings, I stayed up with him ever since because, I saw him play live. So shout out to them,
Yeah.
them guys.
Well, thanks so much, Fizz, for joining us. Matt, thank you for, as always, being the co-host here on the Dynasty Roundtable. And until next time, nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Go dominate, if I can speak. Go dominate your offseason by following all of these tips. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.